Radio in motion. Program loading in 3, 2, 1. Program activated.
Attention everyone, the unpleasant noise you are about to hear coming from your radio is not a mistake.
Okay, first things first, what is your name?
This is Big Sonny playing the best of the 90s and beyond.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Radio in motion.
Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go.
All right, here we go.
Radio in motion.
Well, how you going? We're out of the studio today. Just going for a walk. Having a bit of a chat. It's hard to deny there's a lot going on these days in the world. And there always is. That's how I always tell people, try to focus on the things you can actually control, which isn't much. Yourself, home, your family, your neighborhood, maybe your community at best. Be a part of it. I think that's important. But the world, I tell you, just keeps getting more complicated. And I used to not chime in on subjects like this about politics and war. Hated the news. But I think when politics and war and these heavy subjects start to affect your life, starts to affect your neighborhood, your home, you can't help but talk about subjects like Israel, Iran, America. Boy, I tell you, you say that, you probably get canceled from someone. I do want to say before I say anything else, and I said this before, it's not about left or right, Republican or Democrat, whatever president you choose. It's just about having an open discourse about the facts, not a narrative. There's always emotion wrapped up, intertwined with all that. I realize that. But, the government is not the people. You talk about Americans, you're allowed to have feedback and to push back if the people that are meant to represent you are not representing you. And the same goes for any country. You talk about Israel, I'm talking about the government. I'm not talking about the people. I'm not talking about religion, Jewish community, Catholic, any religion. People of any country, as I say, I think they want the same thing. They want to live in peace and happiness. No family wakes up and goes, today is the day. Yes, there are extremes, always extremes. But again, I feel like I have to preface that before I start talking about America or Israel or Iran or the Middle East. It always gets wrapped up in, you're an anti-Semite, or you're a racist, or you're a hater. After a while, you call someone those words enough, it just gets boring and doesn't mean anything at that point. So yes, I am going to talk about something a bit deep and a bit annoying. America currently helping Israel at war with Iran. Unfortunately, that has a knock-on effect. There are a lot of other countries around Iran, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I think it's important to remember what it means these days, modern war. Not that there was ever a heroic war, but I think the modern tale is always templated on something like World War II. There's always this belief that, yes, we are out there, America is fighting for freedom and democracy, and we are fighting against tyranny and evil. I hate to say it, and it's just not always the case, especially probably in, the last 20, 30 years easily or more. Again, World War II a point in time. The world came together to fight tyranny. Not everyone is Hitler or a Nazi, but that's the picture they have to paint for you. Whether it's Iraq or Iran or Afghanistan, they pick someone, the Ayatollah, Saddam Hussein. They pick the players and the parts, because America, God love it, we love our drama and our movie. It has to be a movie. We have to set it in our mind, and that's what the mainstream media does. They don't report the news. They tell you the latest adventure movie and all the players, the good guy, the bad guys. And it's not always that simple. And like I say, don't listen to me. What the hell do I know? But all I ever want to do is open, critical thinking. I think we've lost that. We just jump on board with whatever it is. We become, how you going? We become very tribal. And that doesn't seem like a very evolved society, to be so divisive. You have to choose your team, left or right. I think when it comes to the military-industrial complex, war is money. War is a machine that makes money, and there's no denying that. And I think the important part to remember when I talk about this is think about why this happened all of a sudden, and think about whose war this is. And I'm going to be honest. We are going to war with Iran because Israel wanted us to, because Netanyahu wanted us to. And then that's it. There's no need for us to be doing this, especially when, I mentioned before, it has a knock-on effect of so many countries in the region and all the Gulf countries that we have an important relationship with. And that has been built over not necessarily good things, a lot of bad, a lot of good. You know, there's United Arab Emirates, Dubai, Kuwait, Qatar. All those are going to be caught up in this, and I will say it's by design. So, if you don't believe that we are at war because Israel, a country barely the size of New Jersey, I'm just saying, America has so many more people who I thought we were in charge through our representatives, through senators and representatives who are supposed to represent the voice of the people. The majority of America is like, what are we doing this for? So we're at war because Israel asked. And I'll just throw this out there. I'm not going to go too much into Trump. I will say that he's a complete disaster, as they all are. Doesn't matter whether it's Biden, Kamala Harris, Trump. They're all a disaster because once they get in, and I'm sorry, once they get into the swamp, I think it's hard to imagine that anyone was going to come in and make real change. And yeah, maybe we thought Trump was going to be that because he was such a wild card. And that's what happens. Americans are so desperate for something different because they're not being heard. Yeah, they chose Trump. And frankly, he's just the same as the rest. He's gone against everything he said. I thought at the minimum, he is someone who wasn't brought up in the political scene. He wasn't groomed by it. He's just a bit of an outsider, which is good sometimes, to shake it up. But he's gotten caught up with the same thing, and the war machine has turned on. And this was the same man who vehemently opposed and would make fun of all the previous wars, and with George W. Bush and Iraq and the weapons of mass destruction, and that was all bullshit. He's running on a campaign of anti-war. Enough money for the war machine, let's give it back to the people. Well, none of that happened. He turned on the warhammer, full speed ahead. And like I say, that's all I'll say about that. He's a disaster, and there you go. We tried, we failed. But Trump and Netanyahu, this is their war. It's definitely, Netanyahu's war. It's not our war. Beyond the fact that the Middle East has been fighting long before America existed. Centuries, thousands of years. But more importantly, now, we're not an evolved people, because an evolved people would say, this is not going to end well, and what's the end game and why? So why? Because Israel said so. Why now? That's the other question. Because are you telling me that Iran has been on the verge of having weapons of mass destruction for 40 years? Always almost there, and then we go in and stop them? Not to be mean, a kid with, 160 IQ or more, and there's lots of them, I'm sure could find the plans and make their own horrible nuclear weapon device. That's a fact. So you're telling me that Iran, a sophisticated country with plenty of resources, has just been on the cusp, but all of a sudden they've done it, they're there, we've got to attack. No. Why now is because Netanyahu, and by the way, I'm not knocking him, this is par for the course for anyone who's in power, and I'll just forgive him this. He wants to do the best for his country. Unfortunately, it's just by nefarious means. It's as simple as this. Israel doesn't want to be messed with, and they want free reign, and they want to expand further and further. They want to expand their empire. Why can't I knock that? Because what do you think America's like? I love America. I'm in Australia, but I'm always American. I'll always be half and half. I've been able to step back, though, and look from the outside, but of course I want the best for America and Americans. And sometimes, yes, that does involve America wanting to ensure their interests are looked after. And Israel's no different, and their leader is no different, especially when he sees himself as more than just a president or a leader. I'm not going to lie, the people who surround him and fuel his ego, he sees himself as more than that, a prophecy fulfilling destiny. And that gets dangerous when someone thinks that they're there to make not little changes, historical changes for the destiny of their country. Okay, so the why now makes sense. They're at a point where he's like, no, we want more, we want to expand, we're going to take it all. That's nothing new. It's just, again, it's not our problem, but they're making it our problem. And the desire to expand, I'm sure all the countries there want to do that. And what makes them stand out? Why do they even think? And when I say they, again, I'm talking about the government. I'm not talking about the people. The people just want to live their lives in peace and harmony, have a chance, just like Americans, and to live in a country and a system where you can do that. And I'm sorry, not all countries have found a way to get to that point. That's where I say Western civilization, has been better at creating a more well-balanced civilization to allow you to go on the human journey. Simple as that. And that's all the people want. The government, people with power, billionaires, oligarchs, Netanyahu, that's different. Once you have a taste of it, you want more money, more power. So, yes, wants to expand, wants it all. We could go on about the other complicated parts, which are still part of it. Oil, these never go away, by the way. Oil and gas, natural gas, minerals. Do you think that's changed over 100 years? It's only gotten worse. We have an insatiable thirst for it now. Not only is it just oil and natural gas, which again still runs the world. What do you think every phone, the phone I'm on now, every electric car, every battery, there are minerals, there's cobalt. The need to feed that monster is just getting worse. And so, look, those are the parts that are always there. You could go on about, pivotal trade routes. Of course. There are specific passages there that are needed, and it's all part of the global economy. I'm not going to lie. But the why now, I think Netanyahu wants to make his mark while he can, to see that the pieces are aligned and it's time to strike. But again, it's their war. And here's the other thing. The other thing is, again, this is why I don't like the military-industrial complex, because it's not about brave American men and women or from any country fighting for the lives of men and women and children. It's not about that. It's about expanding an empire. And sadly, who are those that always lose in the end? It is, children, women and children. Men and women fight. Children are innocent. And that disgusts me on both ends. I don't care if it's Israel or Hamas. I don't care. It's all sickening because it's all for the wrong reasons. And again, I won't get into the historical, ancient, religious conflict. That is its own thing, and it may never end. I'm talking about currently. This is a whole different kind of war. It's not about saving democracy or freedom. It's just about expanding Israel's needs. And who does this affect? Of course it affects the whole world. It will affect your wallet. It will affect the prices. It will affect your house payments, your petrol prices. That's a given. But that's further down the line. This immediately affects all the, like I said, the Gulf countries who currently, whether still imperfect, trade with the U.S. and this is going to start to affect them. Dubai has had a huge evolution in modern times, in that the Middle East used to still be this mysterious thing. It was for me when I was a kid or even an adult. It was this mysterious world where, there was still a lot of old world and there's living in tents and there's still slavery, and not kidding, that's how it was in more recent times than you can imagine. But that world has opened up, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, money has opened that up a bit. It has. There are billionaires there. But the difference with them is they seem to be content to not start wars. They're happy to have one of the largest airports, the busiest airports in the world in Dubai, as a pivotal point of travel. Regular people, families, businessmen. And that is amazing. That's only happened in recent times. And yes, the countries around them, like I say, Kuwait, and they're producing oil and natural gas. This is all going to affect that. And for no reason. For no reason except Netanyahu just wants to leave his mark and expand the empire. Again, it's just hard to fathom, because I think most people are getting told the story that this is about the tyranny of Iran and terrorism, and somehow they invoke the images of 9/11 and the Ayatollah is going to end up at your local mall with a machine gun. And I'm not saying anything is possible in this world, but they're selling you movie fantasies. And the fact is that's not happening. And like I mentioned before, the last time a president said no to Israel, that was JFK. It's a fact. Funny enough, he ended up being unalived not too long after that. I'm just saying, you can connect those dots. But after that, the U.S. said, sure, we'll help you become a power. We will send billions of dollars that could easily go to, starving kids in America, homeless in America, But we'll send it over there, again, to a tiny country, size of New Jersey, to make sure you have a nuclear program. Isn't that interesting? So the country that wants to eat up all of the Middle East is the only one that actually has a officially legal sanctioned nuclear arms program. So I guess they're thinking, and again, hey, it is what it is. I'm just giving you the facts. Why does America do what it wants to do? It's like Dennis Leary said back in the 90s, because we got the bombs, baby. We do. We have the nukes. And when you're a country that has that power, you tend to get a bit grandiose in doing what you want. And so yeah, Israel has weapons of mass destruction, and they're like, why the hell are we being dictated to by the other countries in this region? And frankly, Iran would be the closest one and the biggest power there. And I guess they figure, well, we'll have to cut the head off that one, and then we can move forward. The other ones, well, they'll fall by the wayside because they're not really a threat. Well, they're a threat in that, you know, they've never been smart enough to get together, just, I dare say, like the United States. Really, it's 50 states, very often with different points of view. But we are all part of a whole and part of America. I'm not trying to give them ideas, but you know, maybe the Middle East should have put down their weapons, put down their petty differences, religious differences, and gotten together and said, you know, we want this kind of world for us, and don't push us around. But not to be mean, again, and you can look this up, look up these facts for yourself. Israel has been doing this for decades, making sure to disrupt all the countries in the region. And you can look up the Mossad and, you know, does everyone have blood on their hands in this one? Yes, that's all I'm saying. I know I'm saying Israel a lot because they are the ones leading this. Whether it's American soldiers being directed by our government or the CIA, I never knock the soldier. I never knock the man or the woman who's on the front line. Frankly, all they're really doing is trying to protect the lives of their fellow soldiers. That's what a soldier does. The orders come on from up high. But yeah, whether it's, you know, Mossad, it doesn't matter if it's Iran, Hamas, doesn't matter what you call a terrorist. I know this sounds very un-American, but Americans are one of the biggest terrorists. We turn the paperwork in better. We make sure all the, you know, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. We turn in our paperwork and make sure it's all sanctioned. But don't tell me that America doesn't love a good overthrow. Okay, it's been done before. Afghanistan and Iraq, they love a good regime change. We're experts at that. CIA are experts at that. But again, I'm not trying to knock America because it's hard to not think of us as the heroes, but you know, I know it sounds like I'm going off the track, but it's tantamount to organized crime. Okay? All organized crime is, and it's not always that organized. Organized crime is just crime, but with a little bit of structure. You know? You got the lieutenants, you got the boss. You've seen all the crime movies. And so that's how that world works. Racketeering, instead of one guy stealing something, it's a bunch of guys in cahoots. And that's considered, you know, organized crime. Well, governments are the same. Sorry. I would hope it's not always like that, but when it comes to doing something not quite legal, well, a government, any government, is just a big gang. So, back to what I said, you know, there's blood on everyone's hands with this, and it makes me sad. And who am I to comment? No, I'm not a political analyst. I have no idea. You think I'm just someone, he just watches YouTube clips and he takes what he wants. You know, for the past 6 years, unfortunately, I've probably intentionally made sure to read a balance of both sides. I don't like to be partial. I try to be impartial, but sometimes when you get enough facts on one side and there is a logic to it, you start to put the facts together. And when it goes against the official narrative that you constantly see on mainstream media, you think that's weird, because a lot of others believe, as I do, using facts and logic. And it looks different when the TV man tells you, when the anchor man in his suit tells you something. By the way, those guys are not journalists. They're just a dude reading a teleprompter. But yeah, so in the end, this is Israel's war, Israel's choice. Why now? Because I think they want to get it done while they can. And unfortunately, America's going along with it. And the knock-on effect is, again, thinking about all the Gulf countries and how it's going to affect them. And yeah, in the end, it will affect America, because they'll get tired of this shit and they'll see that, oh, I thought America said they had bases over here to protect us, and we do, but they're not protecting us. They're actually letting this happen. So that was a lie, and that's going to get found out pretty soon. And again, those connections we made, which help us to be that world power, they'll start to fall by the wayside. Oh, and by the way, everything I've said has led to this final point. With all the disruption in the Middle East and disrupting all the countries who literally are just trying to make a living now, and something again like Dubai, such a pivotal part of the gateway to the Middle East, not to mention now becoming a destination for American families to go and chill. Wouldn't have thought that freaking 30 years ago. When they decide they're done with America and all the other countries, yeah, the knock-on effect will be our cost of living and our way of life that we're used to, all the little gadgets we have, the lifestyle we're used to, because we're so far away, but we just expect all the goods to come into the country, along with the old standard, the big three: oil, natural gas, and minerals in general. That will affect you at home. And again, you're thinking, oh, you're just thinking about the money, not the people. No, I've already talked about the people, and that's disgusting. Innocent lives lost over narcissism, to leave your destiny, to leave your mark. And again, I'm talking about Netanyahu. Trump's a mystery. I think everyone has their visceral sides. Again, they're on the left or the right, or they're just anti-Trump. I'm sorry to say, that's not using critical thinking, and it's very small-minded. You need to look at the person, and then you need to look at the machine behind the person. And no matter who you put in that spot, I don't care if it's a man or a woman of any color or any religion, or you put a bird up there, you're going to get the same result. I'm sorry. You're going to get the same result, because it's not them leading the country. There are billionaires that you can't even imagine. I'm not talking Elon Musk. They are beyond that, and they're the ones pulling the strings. So in the end, yes, I'm disgusted by lives lost, but I will be honest, we're going to lose any allies and connections we had in the Middle East, or we are in danger of losing them. And that will change the way of life in America, or Australia, or the UK, any Western civilization. Again, that's another thing with the UK. They lost control long ago. I think it was like in the 50s. They have no presence, and losing that control in the Middle East, again, you're thinking, oh, good, the colonists are gone. You're all just evil colonists. Again, you can look this up for yourself, the facts, Sometimes a region is just in chaos, and sometimes there's a way to bring a bit of structure to it, and then help the people to be the best of themselves, whether you think that's cheesy or not. And the fact is England lost that, and it had a knock-on effect to, again, England, such a small island, ruled the world, and ruled it with ships, as they once said. But again, that power and their way of life and their country, yeah, England is certainly not the same. and America could suffer the same fate. How does that affect you in your home, in your living room right now, wherever you are, in your car, at work, walking through the park? It affects it in so many little ways that you may not notice it, but they'll have a cumulative effect that will affect the peace that you're trying to achieve. And I hate that financial freedom is freedom. I'm not someone who gets off on money. I get off on the power of building wealth and generational wealth. That's important for you and your children. And when you are fighting against your own country to do that, and the way it throws its weight around the country, again, on the behest of another country, and when it comes full circle to you, can't make that car payment, can't make that house payment, have to skimp on your kid's lunch. It's all these little things. And it makes me sad, because what is supposedly the richest country in the world has a lot of despair at the moment. And that's another conversation, but I would hate to see that get worse. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I just had to say them because it's sort of eating at me. I usually don't chime in on this kind of stuff, but I can't help it. I can't help but try to get people again to just use critical thinking and make up your own mind, so that, 40 years from now, and it'll happen, or even sooner, the narrative of what happened here will be America went on this great war and there was great freedom, and they cut off the head of the snake, which was Iran, and the Ayatollah who attacked America, like I said, who ran around a mall with a machine gun, and we had to fight back. You think that doesn't happen? Yeah. Stories change, and when enough people believe lies and enough people spread the lies, again, I could go on about this, but if you don't understand how that happens, a lie can become truth in less than a decade, probably in a year. So, sometimes people just try to keep the facts while they're happening so that they can't be twisted later. But sometimes there's no helping that. You can only hope that, again, our generation and the next one tries to use their head. And I'm not saying to revolt against the government or something, but speak up. Show them in little ways, your community, your family, the things you can control. If you want to be a part of your community, or you run for a local office or something, make sure that you live your way in your city and town and neighborhood, and maybe even the state. I do believe in that, at least in America. I think that's still possible. Live your way with your neighborhood and your family and your values at the front of the line. And that includes everyone from everywhere. Every immigrant that ever came to America, that built the country and who's still building it now, someone who wants to come in and work hard to build their dream. That is America, and that's beautiful. So when I say Americans, don't give me the I'm just a colonist or a racist. I mean everybody. America is bring us you're tired, you're wretched, you're poor. America is immigrants. And by the way, I mean legally. Sorry to say. And if you came in illegally, well, get the paperwork done, sort yourself out. If you're not running from a crime, or you're a murderer or something like that, because that's probably not a good start, welcome to the family. Welcome to all our problems, but you're welcome to be a part of it for the positive. You're welcome to be a part of America as a whole and our values and dreams, which I think are pretty simple. We want to live and let live. Build a little peace for something for yourself and your family without taking away from your neighbor, if you can. I think it's not that hard. All right, so I'll end it, or I'll go on another tangent, but just remember, this isn't America's war. Don't be fooled by it. All right, catch you later. Hope you have a good day.